An absolutely disgusting, moldy mess found just behind the walls in a family's apartment. It sent every member of the family to the hospital, and now they say they're stuck living with it.
They're also wondering how they can get some relief. When you ask, we investigate. Contact 13 investigative reporter Stephanie Zeppelin is getting results.
When they moved into this apartment, Ishmael Hassan and his family had no idea what was behind the kitchen walls. They said there was water coming out of the floor, so they called maintenance.
He came in and he looked around and pulled out stuff, and he said, "You got mildew and mold." It was really bad. And so he just started instantly chopping it out.
Ishmael said that was a week ago. They've been living like this without a kitchen sink for the last week. You can see mold still stuck to the walls and even what looks like insect eggs.
I just think that what's unfair is they're in violation of their lease. And
everyone living here, he says, has recently been to the hospital, including his 2-year-old.
I'm more concerned about him because he's a little kid. And God forbid, I hope nothing don't happen to him.
So we went to the office to see what they could do. They offered to put Ishmael and his family in a hotel, but they didn't want to be without a kitchen. But after we talked with management, they had another option. The management told us they would move them into another unit on the property so they could go forward with spraying and getting rid of the mold. We'll keep an eye on it. Stephanie Zeppelin, 13 Action News.
And we want to thank Ishmael for emailing us about this problem. If you have a story you would like us to investigate, just send us an email to 13investigates@ktnv.com and be sure to include your telephone number.
First tonight, a Grand Rapids family with a nasty problem. For more than a month, the inside of their home has been covered in mold, and they say it is making them sick. The family is renting and says the landlord would not take care of the moldy mess until now. 24-hour News 8's Mark Thompson is at the live desk to explain why the action. Mark?
Well, Susie, that landlord is cooperating now, but the family says it wasn't until a neighborhood association, the city, and finally we got involved that he decided to take any action at all. And meanwhile, they've been living in this moldy house for weeks, and they say they can't afford to move. Not only is it gross and unsightly, but Kimberly King says the mold in her house is making her family sick. King had a doctor run tests after her teenage daughter and 2-month-old grandson started breaking out into a rash.
That's when they found out, she had some wheezing in her lungs, and they end up giving her steroids and some cream and stuff, same as my grandchild.
King noticed the problem in July. A leak in the upstairs bathroom, she believes, is the source of the mold. She says her landlord promised to have someone come out and take a look, but they never showed.
This was maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Concerned for her family's health, King took action, calling her neighborhood association, who in turn called the city to try and get an inspector out to the house. Her association rep even called a city commissioner to expedite the process until finally,
Friday, after News 8 had been here, that's when we got the inspector out.
The house cited for several code violations, and the landlord, Mark DeVries, given 5 days to take care of it. And it would appear he's making good. A plumber was sent out to the house today with the promise of mold work to start tomorrow.
What did he loosen? What did he do?
But as a rent-paying tenant for 6 years, King says it shouldn't have taken so much and so long for her landlord to respond. Now she wants to move, but can't afford to. At the very least, she needs a place to stay while the mold is being removed.
So therefore, he should be responsible to put me and my family somewhere.
And before we left the property, her landlord responds. Great. Well, I appreciate you getting back to me. DeVries agreeing to put King and her family up into one of his other units until the mold problem is resolved. And that landlord says he tries to respond to all of his tenants in a timely manner. He says that he has nothing to hide, and he's even invited us out to go through that property with him tomorrow as he begins that process of cleaning up that mold. He says that the Kings have been good tenants, and he hopes that they can resolve this issue and that they will continue to rent from him in the future. Back to you.
Tenants at Millbrook Point Apartments say the problems just seem to continue and that maintenance is slow at getting things fixed. Tonight, News Channel 6's Stephanie Borman takes us into one apartment to see what conditions those tenants are living in.
Mike, the renter I spoke with, says she has mold and mildew in her apartment, and she says the staff is just concealing the issue. And now she says it's even starting to affect her health. Millbrook Point Apartments may look nice on the outside, but inside, the tenants say many problems are lurking.
Clogged sinks, the kitchen faucet dripping, the handle on the stove falling off. In my laundry room, there's a hole.
News Channel 6 toured Sharon Reed's apartment. Reed says 3 weeks ago, she started asking questions about the mold and mildew spreading in her apartment.
I called yesterday to speak to the manager. The manager won't be until Monday, so I spoke to an assistant manager. She said someone will come out today, if not today, then Monday.
She says on Friday, a maintenance worker finally came by her home.
But is painting really fixing the issue?
I can cover this stain with the oil base, stain that'll cover that up, and even if you do have a leak, it'll sit there and it'll keep it covered for a good while. But if there's something that's, perennially leaking up there, then over time it's just going to come back through.
Next, Reed says she looked through her lease and found that it says tenants must report mold and mildew problems or they could end up paying fines.
We cannot fix those problems in your dwelling unless we know about them. I notified them.
I couldn't even tell you how many times a week, in these places with the leaks that are just, they say they fix them and they don't, and the same stuff keeps coming back through.
Now Reed says she is just scared for her health.
I have lupus, and I've been to the emergency room twice since this mold has been growing. I have paperwork. You want to call Doctor's Hospital?
It's leaking again. The water is still hot. They still haven't fixed it.
Black mold, leaky ceilings, even dead rats coming up from the drains. These are real issues at homes in the Metro East. Well, tonight we are watching out for those residents. They've turned to us for help, a solution, a fix to what they say is ignored persistent problems. This is happening at the Greystone Apartments in Cahokia Heights. News 4's Jenna Ray takes you there and shows you what those people are enduring.
Water coming from the ceiling, light switches, and floorboards.
When I turn the water on, it leaks behind the wall. Like it comes from right behind here.
Haley Sellers and her family have lived at Greystone Apartments since 2019.
They still haven't fixed it.
Samela Witt has been here since 2015. It's housing funded by your tax dollars through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This is what Sellers' bathroom looked like until this week. You can see what she says is black mold all over the walls.
She said they was going to cut the mold out and then they was going to treat the wood the same day, but nobody's came back.
Her bathroom now looks like this.
This is the first time they came since 2019 to get them for the mold.
Photos show what looks like a dead rat coming up from the bathtub's drain after hours of water being clogged and Sellers trying to plunge it clear.
How many times do you think you've complained?
A lot.
I've been complaining since October 21st, 2020.
Both Witt and Sellers say their biggest concern is mold. Sellers has 5 kids, while Witt has serious health problems.
I'm asthmatic and I also have COPD. Very severe. I don't want to wind up in my apartment dead just because something like this that could have been prevented and could have been fixed.
In March 2020, News 4 told you about Greystone Apartments after the city of Allerton took action on bad conditions.
I'm going to condemn a couple of buildings out here today.
2 years later, we're back, and we tried talking with property owners. A locked door and no response. We even tried calling the property manager's cell phone.
At the tone, please record your message.
Residents say they're often left hanging by the management. At a loss, they've come to News 4, again, to try and get real action.
Kind of makes you feel like less of a person than them. Maybe, because we live in housing, we should accept what we have. Like, we're not important.
It hurts. I have to choose staying here versus my life. It hurts. And when you don't have nowhere to go, like what can you do? What can you do? And all I've been asking for the last few years is to get this taken care of.
Since Allerton recently was merged into Cahokia Heights, I reached out to Cahokia Heights' code enforcement. I spoke with someone there briefly about previous citations regarding this problem property. She said she wasn't aware and would get back to me. We haven't heard back yet, but we'll be following up tomorrow. Sam and Corey.
Definitely a story to follow. Jenna, thank you.
Mold in your home,
it's a serious issue. If there's moisture somewhere, mold can follow. One Bellevue renter says that's what happened to him. Leaking pipes led to mold that's spreading in his apartment. Well, News Channel 5's Aaron Cantrell tells us what that renter now wants management to do to help him out.
It was coming out of the walls right here. You can see like a spot right up there. We had water coming out of like the vent right here.
Kyle Childress remembers last year's winter like it was yesterday. And if he forgets, there's tons of water damage to remind him.
As I walk through my apartment every day, I see other spots around here that have been affected by, the busted pipes upstairs and other water damage.
Last year, pipes burst inside his unit, flooding many areas of his apartment at Ivana Lexington. Cleanup took a few days, but with 2 cats, he tried to get transferred to a new unit.
Water is there on the ground. It's just sloshing everywhere. I would talk to somebody new every time, and they'd know what I was talking about. And it was very, very frustrating. And eventually, I just kind of gave up on it.
Over a year later, the issue has grown.
And I was putting my shoes up in here, and I noticed this spot's right here. I was like, oh, that's really weird. And I started pulling stuff back, and I saw all of this damage.
As someone who deals with asthma,
I have a problem with that running through my family. It can't be good for you.
Kyle isn't going to let this issue go away. This time, he really needs help.
This is a serious problem, and I need help. I can't live like this. I don't feel comfortable to live in this apartment any longer.
According to the Tennessee Department of Health, they don't have the authority to inspect and require landlords to address mold issues in rental property. However, in some cases, local building codes may be able to help address the problems that contribute to mold growth. If all else fails, they suggest you file a complaint with the Tennessee Division of Consumer Affairs with the Attorney General's office. Kyle says someone from the complex did leave him a note after coming in to inspect the mold.
I check for mold and also spray bleach to kill everything.
But feels more should be done.
Maybe get my lease transferred to a new apartment in the meantime and help me take care of this. But if that's not the case, then I'll probably have to look for somewhere else to live.
In Bellevue, Aaron Cantrell, News Channel 5.
Thanks, Aaron. We did reach out to Greystar, the company that owns that apartment complex. They say they're now working with Kyle to address this issue. You can read their full statement. We've posted it on newschannel5.com.